Hello, Michael Fish here with another DCS Essentials guide to the F18 video. This video we're going to look at an S3 approach in the cold, in dark and night weather conditions, and windy and rain. So it's a typical scenario in which case 3 is required onto a deck of a carrier. So you can see the important things we have here by way of information before we start is the carrier frequency is 127.500, TACAN is 71 X-ray, and the ICLS is 11. So these three are essential for us to land on the carrier in the dark. We're going to do this without the marshal stack, although the marshal stack details will be called out. And we're going to set ourselves up in the aircraft at Angel 6 at approximately 35-36 miles from the deck. So we'll start by tuning into the carrier frequency and request the inbound. And we're going to follow their instructions from therein, and I'll talk us through. So let's fly now. And I'm going to set up autopilot so that we can be held at Angel 6. Okay, 127.500 on radio 2. Doesn't matter what channel, it's up to yourself, but once it's readily accessible. And then I'm going to request landing. ATC 2 inbound.
Marshal 011, parking maps 170440, Angels 6, state 6.9.
011, Rough Rider Marshal, case 3 recovery, CD1 approach, expect final bearing 344, altimeter is 2903, 011, Marshal motors 164, radio 21, DME Angels 6, expected approach time is 00.
011, Marshal on that 164, 21, DME Angels 6, expected approach time is 00.
011, brief back correct.
Okay, the important bits of that are the marshal is for 21 DME Angel 6, and he called 164. So this is our marshal. This is the opposite heading to our 344 BRC, which is what we're going to set up our aircraft for. So 344, DME 21 and Angel 6 are the critical parameters that we need to know before we start inbound. I'm going to set up our TACAN now to 71, switch it on. And I like to have my HSD on the left hand side screen. And I'm going to set TACAN as a current waypoint. And this allows me to bring up our course line, and I'm going to roll that down to 344. So you can see we're pretty much on the line. I'm also going to zoom out because we need a lot of granularity in order to maintain a very accurate track on our BRC. Switch off our map because it's too bright on our HUD in the night time. And I'm going to change our mode. Oh, I can see a bit more in the pit. 31 miles, so we're good for a few more minutes. I'm going to switch on the light, taxi light, even though when I land it's going to be switched off, or when I switch my landing gear down. Anti-skids off, carrier to bypass, and we're going to put our hook down. Also going to dump some fuel. I don't know whether you saw there while Tara was talking to me, I'd set my bingo to 3000. So we're configured there. I'm going to set my ILS now. Switch that to on and set it to 11. And I'm going to switch on our auto throttle. And we're set now to talk to Tara. Established.
011, established Angels 6, state 5.6.
011, Roger, state 5.4.
Okay, it's important to note that we're heading in towards the boat on a bearing of 344. It's what we should be on. But the boat is heading north, which is 360. So while we continue to head onto that, the boat is actually moving away from us. So that line is always going to be drifting from port to starboard on us. And when we get lined up with our final bars for ICLS, we're going to need to set ourselves up just a couple of degrees to starboard in order to offset for that change. And we see this as we approach that. Okay, we're approaching our Angels, we're approaching 21 DME now. So I need to commence. Commencing.
011. Commencing. State 4.4. Altimeter 29.93.
011. Radar contact 20 miles. Expect final bearing 344. 011. Switch approach.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch in our heading. We switch out our barometric altitude, pull back in our throttle, put our air brake on and push down 10 degrees. Check in.
011. Checking
Altitude.
in 18 miles.
Altitude.
011. Approach. Final bearing 344. 011.
Now we're going to platform because we're below Angels 5. Platform.
011. Platform. 011. Roger.
Okay, we're going to start coming up now to meet our target altitude, which is 1200 AGL.
Bingo. Bingo. Altitude. Altitude.
Okay, our speed has dropped down a little bit, so we need to bump that back up. So we're bingoed, so we need to switch off our dumping. And I'm going to switch off our data link so we clean up the HUD. And switch off our air brake. So we're going to maintain our speed below 200. Our on speed is going to be around 1200, not 12. It's going to be around 240 knots, 140 knots. So we need to be not too far away from that when we configure at 10 miles our aircraft with gear and flaps. So hook is down. Everything else looks good on our panels. 169. We're 1190 in altitude, and we're still in autopilot. Okay, so I'm going to switch off autopilot now.
011.
And I'm going to drop gear. And flaps. I'll switch off our lights there, they're blinding me. Yeah, 170, we're gone up too high in speed. I'm going to start trimming now to try and bring our staple.
Altitude. Altitude.
And I've changed our altimeter warning to 1200, and you can see why. It allows me to know that I'm close to the 1200 mark if I drop too far below it. But that looks reasonably good now, and Just need to concentrate on trying to keep this as close as possible until we switch over to our ICLS. Let's give you a look at what the hood looks like there. Note that because in BR you're only seeing my right eye, so I need to just adjust to the left for you to see the altimeter. Once you do something else, you tend to lose your focus, so it's important to concentrate at this phase.
11, final radar contact, 8 miles. 011.
Okay, I'm going to switch on our ICLS now.
Altitude. Altitude.
Bring yourself up a little bit. So the numbers I'm focusing obviously on the symbology in the center of the screen where the flight path marker is. The staple and the donut. The donut comes up easily on my peripheral vision, so I can see that all the time. It's nice and bright. And then I'm looking at the needles. And I'm looking at the course line on my HSI there. And in a moment, once we pick up the glide slope, I'm going to switch off that symbology. And we're going to put a marker on the tape for our tack-on, and that's our bearing to the boat. I'm also going to cage our flight path marker, so it's always in the center of the screen.
011, ACLS lock on, 6 miles, same needles. 011, up and on. 011, concur, fly mode 2.
Okay, we're on the needles now. Now I'm going to switch off, tack on, and switch it back on again to remove that arrow, which tends to be a bit confusing for me. So we're now looking at, if you look at the tape on the top there, you'll see the marker for our boat, which is at 344, and we're to the left of it, so I'm going to move to the right. We've also got our bar to the right hand side, so we're going to bring that back in. And remember what I said earlier on, we're going to have to offset a little bit to keep our glide slope in the center. So we're a little bit to the right, so I'm going to have to bring that line to the left by moving up. Just set ourselves up at 350 and it should start coming in. We're 4.1 miles, so we're still a good bit out, but it's important not to lose control of it at this stage.
Approaching glide path. 011.
So you can see that needle is just gradually coming into the center. And now we're almost in the center, so I'm going to move back. Somewhere between the 344 marker and the 350 is good enough. And glide path is dropping onto our flight path marker, as we can see, a little bit above it. We need to settle ourselves out somewhere between 5 degrees nose down and the horizon. It's going to be 3 degrees, somewhere like that.
Fuel low.
Okay, we need to switch off our dumping. Fuel is 1690. We need our aircraft nice and light for this approach. So we're nicely set up there now, and then we need to track the glide slope. Hopefully we don't get too much turbulence. We will probably when we get closer to the boat. So you can see we're offset by about 2 degrees up there, which is giving us a good line and preventing the localizer from drifting. We need to not drift too far close to the 344. Okay, we've got visibility now. Going to have a quick look at the boat. We're lined up well there. Okay, you need to drop down a little bit more. We've lost the glide slope.
011, on glide path, on course, 3/4 of a mile, call the ball.
See the ball? See the ball.
Fly the ball.
See the ball.
011, port ball, 1.5.
Ride the ball, 26 knots, down the angle. Fly the ball. You're high. You're drifting left.
Okay, we drifted. Let's get out of the way here first. Okay, we're just going to park up quickly here, and then we'll just do a quick summary of what we did and the takeaways. Okay, just to sum up, the important takeaways there: configure the aircraft early. If you're in the Marshal stack, you should be able to use the autopilot and configure a lot of the systems, particularly comms, fuel management, and HUD symbology. TACAN and ICLS should all be done well in advance of that step. So when you do commence, everything is configured. Don't be afraid to use autopilot. Get yourself online, use the autopilot, particularly on the heading select. Use the autopilot to take you down when you're dropping in altitude, so you don't have to worry about that when you're managing your altimeter. Change your altimeter warning early enough. You're not worried about the default 5000. The most important one is the 1200 that you need to hit the glide slope on. So change that to that warning as early as possible in the process, even before you start commencing. And I didn't do it, but I probably should have done it. Change my altimeter to radar, although we were set at a standard barometric altimeter 2992, so our indicator was actually the same as it would be for radar within a very short margin. We're really not looking at our altimeter anyway. We're following the symbology on the hood. So speed is not important once you get on speed. The other one is when you come down to 1200 and you're hitting the 10 mile mark before configuring, dirtying up, is to bring your speed down. Have your speed below 200 knots and settled. That means that when you put your gear and your flaps down, it's easier to configure your aircraft and not drift too far away from the 1200 mark and get it back. And finally, when you're coming close, when you're given when you're established with the glide slab, with the ICLS, you'll call it to you. Switch off the TACAN and switch it on again to get rid of the course line, and just use the symbology on the tape. I find that much cleaner, and it's very easy to follow. So you're literally just following that marker on your tape. So when everything is correct, you're going to have the cross in the center of the flight path marker, the center of the circle, and you're going to be aligned with that. You'll have the V on the heading tape aligned with that little marker that's up there. To one exception, that you're going to need to be a little bit to the right of that, depending on the heading for the boat. A couple of degrees is probably enough when you're established there to reduce the amount of drifting. And as soon as you see the boat, what I normally do is I switch on my night vision to get a sense of where the deck is, although you still should be following the ICLS. A touchdown, as you see in VR, it's quite difficult to see from a distance out the ball, but when you get close enough in, you'll see whether it's up, down or non-existent. You can see at the very end of the approach there, we dropped a little bit. However, we still didn't get a wave off warning. And don't be afraid to push when you're dropping onto the deck. Don't be afraid to push your throttle forward to catch the hook, and firmly, how would you say, ditch yourself onto the deck so you don't bounce. So I hope you found this video useful and interesting, and feel free to like, dislike, comment and subscribe. And until the next time, this is Fish Out.